Welcome to the Money Tips No One Told You podcast. I'm Heather with First Pioneers Federal Credit Union, and I'll be your host. At First Pioneers, we're dedicated to caring for our members' financial needs with heart, and that means providing more than just financial services. It's about empowering you to take control of your financial destiny through knowledge and understanding. This podcast is all about guiding our listeners toward a brighter financial future. So get ready to embark on a journey towards financial well-being, because at First Pioneers, we believe that when our members are financially successful, we all succeed. Stay tuned for a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. Today we're talking about a topic that is actually really crucial for everyone's future, and that's retirement savings. Did everyone just collectively groan when I said that? Yeah, I hear you. I kind of do the same thing at times. And I mean, I'm working in this industry, and there have been many times in my life where it has just felt so far away and sort of kind of elusive, and maybe like I would never understand it. But I'm actually getting very close to retirement age, and I don't feel ready. And I feel like so many people that I talk to will say the same thing, and especially younger people. And I really think it's a topic that a lot of people don't understand, but it's not as elusive as you think. It's not as difficult as you think. And there are people to help, which is really important. We want you to know the basics, and we're going to get into some of that today. But I also want to make sure that I'm very clear that no one expects you to know all of these things, but having knowledge so that you can make informed decisions is really important. And knowing that there are people available to help you make these decisions is also really important. So today we're going to specifically discuss 401ks and IRAs. We're going to talk about what they are, what's the difference, and why you need one or maybe both. Let's start with understanding retirement savings. And by that, I mean, why is saving for retirement so important? And why do people keep asking you about it? Well, because let's be honest, retirement might seem like a distant, far off thing that you can worry about later, especially if you're in your 20s or even your 30s. But the reality is that the sooner you start saving, the better off you'll be later. And the later you wait to start, the harder it is to catch up. And I know people say this and it sounds odd sometimes, but time kind of has a way of passing quickly, even though it's not really true. It passes at the same rate all the time. But time passes and life tends to kind of get away from us, especially when life is busy. And before you know it, it's time. So why is it so important to save? Well, because retirement savings ensures that you have enough money to live comfortably when you're no longer working. And I think all of us hope that we'll get to that place one day, right? Where we can take a break from work and enjoy our lives, maybe some grandchildren, maybe travel, whatever you want your retirement to look like. And we have to be honest, Social Security is not a guarantee. In fact, the younger you are, the less likely there will be funding in the Social Security program for you to use, especially not full funding. You know, the percentages are dropping with each generation. And even if there is funding, will it be enough? It's often not as much as you might think. In fact, most likely it won't be as much as the paycheck you get now, or at least the paycheck that you're probably earning once you are reaching retirement age. Because most likely your income is going to increase as you get older, but so will your expenses. Now, on my last check, when I looked, that was as of May 2024, the average retirement check was $1,778. Now, this number will adjust as the government adjusts it for things like cost of living and things like that. It'll also vary depending on what age you retire. So there's a few little caveats there. And I also want to clarify that that's monthly. So that's what, roughly $21,000 a year, 21 and some change, I think. That's very difficult to live on if that's the only income you have. And with the cost of everything going up right now, that's just going to make it even more difficult. So in short, relying solely on Social Security, it's just not a safe bet. And it really makes having a personal retirement savings plan even more crucial. One type of retirement savings plan is a 401k. You may have heard your employer say it. Maybe you didn't really know what it meant or what it was, but that's exactly what it is. A retirement savings plan that's offered or sponsored, maybe another way to say it, by your employer. And it allows employees a way to save and invest a portion of their paycheck before the taxes are taken out. And now to answer the question that may have just popped into your head, the taxes are paid when the money is withdrawn from the account, and that's going to be most likely at your retirement age. So there are a few things that make a 401k attractive. The first one of those is an employer match. Basically, there are many employers that will offer to match a portion of your contributions. So this is essentially free money, you guys, and it can significantly boost your retirement savings. Let me see if I can give you an example. Let's say your salary is $50,000 a year, and you decide that you're going to contribute 6% of your salary to your 401k each year. So 6% of $50,000 is $3,000. So that means for the year, you would contribute $3,000 to your 401k. Now, in this example, let's say that your employer will match 50% of employee contributions up to 6%. So they will max out at 6%. That means that they will basically contribute half the amount you do. So in this instance, they would contribute 3%. Because that's half of what you contributed, right? You said 6%, so they'll do 3%. So if you're putting in $3,000 and then your employer is basically putting in half of that on top of it, so that's $1,500. So think about how much you just increased your contribution with that match. That's $1,500 free dollars. Now there are a couple things to consider with an employer match. Like we said, it's free money, right? So your account's going to grow faster with those additional dollars. That's more that can be invested, which means higher returns. So win-win there. That's all good. But there are, I'm going to say, limits. One of those limits is the match will vary from employer to employer, okay? A 50% match is not necessarily the norm. So you want to find out what yours is. If there is one available, you can find that out from your HR department. Go to your manager. They'll know who to ask. But even if it's a smaller percentage, it's still free money. So, take advantage of that, right? Another thing to consider when you're doing this also is most employers will have what's called a vesting schedule. I don't know if you've ever heard someone say, you can be 100% vested in your 401k. So vesting is simply talking about the ownership of the money in the account. Okay. So the money you put in, the money you contribute, that's yours. Okay. That's your money. You keep that no matter what. It's your money. You put it in there. It's the employer money is where the vesting becomes important. Usually what it means is that you have to work for a company for a certain amount of time to be what's called 100% vested. So let's say 6 years is how long your company says. If you stay there for 6 years and then after that 6 years you choose to leave that company, You want to take your 401k with you, right? It's your money. So obviously you're entitled to the contribution that you made, but you stayed the 6 years, which meant you're 100% 100% vested, which means the matched funds that the employer put in, those are yours to take as well. But if you were to leave before that time, so let's say you've been contributing for 3 years and then you leave the company and go somewhere else and you want to bring your 401k with you, your funds come, just like we said, they're your funds. You bring them with you. The matched funds, however, won't be available to you because you weren't 100% vested. Your funds, always yours. Matched funds, you may have to be vested in order to take them with you. If you stay at the employer, this is a moot point. It's not even something you need to be concerned about. I have heard of some employers that have a true schedule for vesting, and basically it's a percentage breakdown as you work up to that 6 years. Maybe at the 3-year mark, you would be entitled to 50% of the employer contribution. Then at 4 years, maybe it's 60%. And then at 5 years, it's 75% or something like that. So there may be a percentage that they offer. And then, of course, once you reach the full 6 years, you're at 100%. The bottom line is that matching and the vesting period can vary, sometimes widely. It truly depends on the employer as to how this will work, okay? So don't assume that the example I just gave you is how yours works, okay? You're going to need to ask your employer what they do and what their vesting schedule is and if they have a matching program. Again, that's your HR department. If you don't know where your HR department is, most likely your manager, whoever your supervisor is, can start to guide you in the right direction. But hopefully these examples kind of give you an idea of how it can work, and then you can get your information from your company and kind of do that math to figure out what is going to work for you. One other important matter when deciding how much you will contribute to your 401k each year, the IRS actually limits how much you can put in a year. And that includes from your employer. Okay, so that includes your contribution as well as your match. And for 2024, the limit is $22,500. That's all you can put in a year. Now, if you're over 50, however, you can put up to $30,000. So basically, you'll kind of need to do the math to help decide what percentage you want for your contribution. And of course, there are some tax advantages for a 401k. Like we said before, your contributions are made pre-tax, which means that you reduce your taxable income in the year you contribute. So you're getting your paycheck. You've decided you're going to contribute $100 a paycheck to your 401k. Well, that's $100 that won't be taxed at that time because that money will go straight to that 401k account. Now, then, of course, that investment is going to grow tax deferred until you withdraw the money, most likely once you're in retirement years. I find generally there is a company or someone within HR or something of that nature that's handling the 401k accounts for your company. They are the ones that are investing the money to help it grow and things like that. And of course, you can decide, at least in part, how that's done. For example, if you're younger and further from retirement age, you may say, look, I want you to be a little more aggressive about where you invest this money. I want you to invest it in places that are a little more risky because they could have a higher return. Now, of course, if they're more risky, then there's also more risk of loss. But if you're younger, basically you have time to do that, because if you risk and lose some money, you still have time to make it back before you would actually need it. So if you have the time, being a little more risky, maybe the route you want to go. On the other hand, if you're getting closer to retirement age, you may want to start moving those investments into less risky ventures. That way you can still see growth because it's still invested, so it should grow, but you're not at so much risk of losing money because, again, the closer you are to retirement age, you just don't have as much time to make that money back before you retire. So those are things that you can determine, you can decide, and you let the person that's managing your 401k know what you would like to do, and they can advise you on what's a good idea based on your plans for retirement, what your goal is that you would like to have in that account when you retire, your age, and just different things like that. So they can absolutely help you make determinations on what's best to do with the money. But ultimately, the decision is yours. Now, you can withdraw early from a 401k, but there's often penalties when you do that. Usually it's going to be about 10%. And then, of course, you're going to have to pay the income tax on that amount because remember, you're not paying taxes on that money. So the taxes are going to have to get paid at some point. Now, of course, that'll change once you're 55. And if you leave your job, some of those things change. And this is something I actually learned recently. At 72, once you reach the age of 72, the IRS will actually begin to require you to withdraw from the account. I know some people, they have multiple investments or accounts that they draw from for their retirement years. And when they reach 72, even though they didn't need that money as part of their living expenses, the IRS required that they start withdrawing money from that account. So that's something that as you're making your financial plan for those years that you'll have to consider. Again, I don't know if I said this before, a financial planner is really great for things like this because they can help you know what to do with that money, or, hey, you need to make this withdrawal and this is what we can do with it. Again, that's going to be all part of your plan that you're creating for your retirement years. Now, there are times that you can withdraw from a 401k early if you qualify for a hardship withdrawal, and there are a plethora of reasons that you can do that. So it is possible, but there's going to be paperwork that you're going to have to fill out, and you're going to have to make sure that your situation qualifies. Again, whoever's managing your 401k can help you with that. For instance, things like if there's a divorce and the 401k has to be divvied up between the partners, that's one of the ways that it could be withdrawn. There are just various things like that. So that's just one to keep in mind. But just know that withdrawals are possible, but there's stipulations to when and how and if it's going to cost you. If you do ever leave your job, like we were discussing earlier, you can actually roll your money from your 401k into another account. It's possible you can roll it into a 401k with your new employer. Sometimes that is an option. Sometimes it's not. If not, you may consider something like an IRA, which we're going to cover in just a minute. But there are some options to move that money from the old employer if that's what you choose to do. So basically, there are some exceptions and, quite frankly, a multitude of reasons why a 401k might not just sort of sit at this one employer where you started it, until the time that you're ready to retire. A lot of things can happen. Life happens, things happen. So if something does happen where there is a change with employment or you're in need of that money or any of those things, basically you're just going to need to ask the person that manages that 401k, or if you have a financial advisor that you're working with, those people are going to be able to help steer you in the right direction as to what to do with that money. Okay, now I know that may have been a lot. It's a lot to kind of digest and think about, but before you get overwhelmed and dip out on me, okay, like I said, there are people that manage these things. This is their job. Some of us may have financial managers that we work with and that we pay. Some of us have employers that have companies that do this for us, and that is their job, is to help us do these things, specifically with that one account. If you have multiple accounts, that's when a financial advisor may come into play. My point is, they help you look at these things. They help you look at what you need, what's your plan, what would you like to have when you retire, where are you now, how much do you make, all of those things. They will help you look at adjusting your contributions. They can suggest investment options, all the things we've talked about and more. So we're going to take a deep breath and know that we can do this, because there is help available to help us work our way through it. But hopefully we've broken down the 401k in a way where it makes a little more sense and you understand a little bit more about how that's going to work. Again, some of those variables, you don't even need to concern yourself with it unless you reach a point that you need it or that it's something you want to consider. And then you just simply ask the questions and get the information to know if it's how you want to move on. Okay? So the key is, like we said, if you have a 401k available to you, I would absolutely take advantage of it. And that is going to begin, like so many other things, which is looking at your budget and determining how much you can contribute. Okay, so are we ready? Let's move on to IRAs. And actually, to me, this one is a little bit easier. IRA, I'm sure you've heard of that. You hear people talk about CDs a lot at a financial institution. And have you ever heard them say IRA as well? Basically, that stands for Individual Retirement Account. A little bit different than a 401k because an IRA is generally not tied to your employer. And that actually gives you a little more flexibility in terms of those investment choices. So let's get into the IRAs. There are two main types of IRAs, a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. So let's start with traditional. With a traditional IRA, you can contribute to it from your paycheck like a 401k. So you may hear it described as a deductible account. So it has the same tax advantages as the 401k. Basically, it's tax deferred until retirement. Remember, we talked about that before. One thing about these kinds of IRAs, though, and I actually just learned this recently, is that you can't have more than one deductible account like this. So if you're having an account or a contribution deducted from your check to a 401k and you decide you want to do an IRA as well, you wouldn't be able to do a traditional. You would do a Roth, which we'll talk about in a second. So it would need to be a different kind. And that's because, like I said, can't have more than one deductible account like this. Good to know. Like I said, I actually did not know that until recently. That was something I learned. This one also has contribution limits. For 2024, you can contribute up to $6,500 annually or $7,500 if you were over 50. You can withdraw from it, just like the 401k, but it will be taxed just like ordinary income. And again, there will be penalties. Same as before, it's usually going to be about 10% for any withdrawals that are made before the age of 59 and a half. Again, there may be some exceptions to that, kind of like the 401k. You'll need to check into those terms if you want to do a withdrawal. So basically, I think a lot of people will tell you it needs to be a really good reason if you're going to withdraw, so that you don't lose out with all those penalties. But it can be done, and sometimes it's necessary, and it's what you need to do. So again, this one I find is very similar to a 401k with the tax advantages and with the penalties and such for early withdrawal. One of the biggest differences that I see is that the contributions are significantly less than they would be with a 401k. The contribution limits, that is. And then there's a Roth IRA. And remember a minute ago when we said if you left an employer and you had a 401k account there, but you were unable to roll that money into your current employer's 401k, a Roth IRA would be a good option to roll that money into. It would allow you to just move it so that you don't have to worry about all taxes and withdrawals and all those things. You would just simply roll it from one account to another. So that might be a good option if that's something that you're dealing with. Again, I'm going to recommend perhaps you talk with an investment advisor, financial advisor, and ask them how it's best to handle that so that you have the best option that you can. So let's talk about the taxes with the Roth IRA. The tax advantage here is that your contributions are made with after tax dollars. So that means you've already paid your income taxes on that money. So the withdrawals that you make in retirement age from a Roth IRA would be tax-free. Interesting thing about a Roth IRA is there are some income limits when it comes to contributing to one. I'm going to be honest, it's a lot to get into. There are a lot of different levels, but know that they do exist. They're based on your tax filing status, so married, single, that kind of thing, and your modified adjusted gross income. So again, if you're looking at something like a Roth IRA, I would consider contacting a financial advisor and let them kind of guide you through that, especially if you're concerned about income levels and limits. Now, with a Roth IRA, can offer a little bit more flexibility when it comes to withdrawing money, because the contributions, not the earnings, but the contributions can often be withdrawn without penalty or tax. Now, of course, there are exceptions and variables just like the other accounts, but it is a bit easier. So if that need did arise, having a Roth account may make that situation a little easier. Another really great thing about an IRA that I want to make sure I bring up is they can be perfect for those folks that are perhaps self-employed or work freelance type jobs. So, they don't have a traditional employer that would be able to offer them a 401k program to participate in. But retirement planning is crucial for everyone, right? So an IRA could be a really great option for guys in that position with that kind of employment to help them with their planning. So that's something to consider if you do that kind of work and you've been trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? An IRA might be a really great option to look at. So let's take just a few minutes and compare the 401k and IRA. We're going to start with control over your investments. So an IRA is going to offer a little bit more control and a wider range of investment options compared to a 401k, because often those 401k options are tied to the employer and what the employer decided, so they may be a little bit limited. But with an IRA, you're working with a financial advisor and you can be a little more free about some of those decisions. Ask your advisor, hey, what can we do, and see if they can assist you. But you may just have a few more options. Next is the contribution limits. A 401k actually has higher contribution limits, so it's making it better suited for people who want to be more aggressive with their saving, because they can actually put more in those accounts than you can in an IRA. Next is taxes, because mean, taxes are always a big one, right? Both traditional IRAs and 401ks offer tax-deferred growth, while the Roth IRAs are going to provide tax-free withdrawals. And honestly, the best choice will depend on things like your current tax situation and your expected tax rate in retirement. You know, those things are going to change as you go through life. All of those income levels and tax situations and rates, that they're just going to change as your income levels change. So again, I'm going to recommend a financial advisor who would be really beneficial here to help look at your situation and your expected situation and determine what's going to work best for you. Number 4 is the employer match. That 401k is often going to come with an employer matching contribution, which, as we showed before, can significantly enhance or grow your savings. But IRAs don't have that feature. Now, of course, if you don't have an employer match, then maybe that changes that decision. But if you do have an employer offering a 401k, and especially if they offer a matching program, it's a great thing to look at. And number 5, there's flexibility. Again, IRAs, especially Roth IRAs, are going to offer more flexibility regarding if you need to make any kind of withdrawals from the account. So if you anticipate that you may need to access these funds before you retire, that Roth IRA might really be a better option for you to consider. One thing worth mentioning, you don't necessarily have to choose between a 401k and an IRA. You can have both. And if you have that ability, diversifying your retirement accounts in this way, it can actually be a really smart strategy. For instance, you can contribute to a 401k up to the employer match to take advantage of that free money, and then perhaps contribute to, say, a Roth IRA for the tax-free growth. So both the 401k and the IRA are excellent tools for retirement savings. Each has its own advantages. I recommend evaluating your financial situation. Consider the tax implications, and, like we said, make the most of those employer contributions if those are available to you. The big thing to remember, if you remember nothing else from our little talk today, it's this: start early if you can. Compound those earnings. The earlier you start, the more time you have to grow and earn. And even if you're starting out this journey a little later in your life, you can still do it. I mean, any money that you can save for retirement is going to help. And the truth is, many people will delay saving for retirement, and it's for a multitude of reasons. It may be financial pressures, it could be a lack of knowledge, or just that misconception that I just can't afford it. But even a small contribution can really make a big difference over time. Automating your savings, taking advantage of employer matches, and seeking the advice of a financial advisor it helps you stay on track. Remember, planning for retirement isn't just about securing your financial future. It's about ensuring that peace of mind and the freedom to enjoy your later years without all this financial stress. Okay, bonus tip time. Let's talk about catch-up contributions. How many of you have heard that term? Especially some of you guys like me that are getting a little closer to retirement age, and people keep saying that to you, catch-up contributions. Because let's say you've started saving a bit later and you want to maximize your contributions as you're reaching that retirement age. So, of course, for those of us that are 50 years and older, both the 401k and IRA plans offer this great catch-up contribution feature. And what it does is this provision allows you to contribute extra money to your retirement accounts above the standard annual limits. So how does it work? Well, for 401k plans, In 2024, the standard contribution limit for a 401k was $22,500, right? However, if you're 50 or older, you can contribute an extra $7,500, which brings your total annual limit to $30,000. And that can make a big difference as that money is being invested and it grows. Now for IRAs, for both traditional and Roth IRAs, the standard contribution limit is $6,500 in 2024. But if you're 50 or older, you can contribute an extra $1,000 for a total of $7,500. And again, that extra can help. So why are these catch-up contributions so important? Well, it boosts your savings for one. It provides an excellent opportunity to significantly increase your retirement savings, especially if you feel like you've fallen behind a bit. So the higher amount that's being invested, the higher the potential return, which equals more growth. 2, there are also tax advantages. For traditional IRAs and 401ks, those additional contributions are actually further reducing your taxable income. So that's going to provide you a little bit more immediate tax benefits. Not a bad idea. Number 3, and again, we've said this before, I think, it's compounding growth. So like we've said, the more you contribute, the more potential your investments have to grow over time, thanks to the power of compounding interest. Here's an example scenario. Suppose you're 52 years old and you've really just started to focus seriously on your retirement savings. So here's how that catch-up contribution can help. With a 401k contribution, like we said, you can use the catch-up concept to contribute $30,000 instead of $22,500. Okay? So if you do this consistently over 10 years, you will have contributed an additional $75,000 compared to someone that's under 50. That could be huge. Now, for an IRA contribution, by contributing $7,500 annually instead of $6,500 annually, you're adding an extra $10,000 to your retirement savings over that decade. So these extra contributions can really make a substantial difference in your retirement nest egg, which, I mean, who doesn't want that, right? And that's going to provide you more financial security and flexibility. So again, it's never too late to start saving for retirement. And taking advantages of catch-up contributions, it's truly a powerful strategy for those in their 50s and beyond. So whether you're contributing to a 401k or an IRA, maximizing your contributions can really make a big difference in reaching your goals. Of course, as always, if you have questions, please reach out and we will do our best to guide you in the decisions that you're making, or guide you to find the people that you need to talk to help you. I highly recommend you speak with your HR department, find out who's handling your 401k, speak with those people, get their advice, look at your plans, see if there's adjustments that you need to make. And if you need to, talk to a financial advisor. Let them help you. They can help create a tailored retirement plan, that's tailored to you and your needs, your desires, your financial situation. They will help you take full advantage of all of the opportunities that may be available to you, because all of us want to see you succeed in ensuring that you have a more comfortable and secure retirement. That wraps up another episode of Money Tips No One Told You. We hope you enjoyed the insights and tips shared today. If you have any questions, thoughts, or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us tailor future content to better serve you. There are several ways you can find us if you need further information or need to speak with a financial counselor. Visit us in person in Lafayette or New Iberia, Louisiana, or at firstpioneers.com to find out how to become a member of our family and find other financial information. Also, be sure and check out the show notes for important links and important information. Your financial journey is important to us, and we're here to support you every step of the way. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.